Thank you. Yes, we are a very diverse group of people, and Brother Harold, it's interesting. A lot of us have used, and I've used the language of last year's annual conference being a boiling point to me, and I've decided I'm going to recharacterize it, because I think last year in Grand Rapids we gained the opportunity to really see where we are, and that brought clarity to the demographics of the Church of the Brethren, our cultural and sexual and religious demographics of the church. It was just very, very obvious. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's good. Sometimes you have to have immersion in stark reality in order to know what next steps you might need to take. And so while it was extremely painful on a variety of fronts, I'm not sure we didn't, oh boy, I'm not sure that it was all that bad for us to have to experience the bottom of the barrel, if you will, in order to arrive at a central question. And for me, the question is do we want to be a church together? Do we want to sit with each other in the pew? Do we want to have expression of religious beliefs in the Anabaptist Pietist tradition that span a broad spectrum? Or do we want to become more narrowly focused in maybe 2 or 3 different churches? And when we came together at the Leadership Summit in Leesburg, that question was raised, and it was painful, it was difficult to finally say, do we want to do what it will take for us to remain a church together? Boy, that's a hard one. And do we realize the work that it's going to take because of our differences? While there are those who would propound that we should not stay together, I think we must, quite frankly. Let me take you to the potato blight of Ireland. And do you know where potatoes originated? Peru, South America. And the ancient Peruvians knew that you don't want to have a genus of plant, just one genus of a plant. And there were, at one time, over 100 different varieties of potatoes that they would cultivate every year. Because on any given year, one segment of that of that spread of potatoes wouldn't make it because of disease or blight or something. So they had some understanding of diversity. And it was one type of potato that got to England. And they focused totally on that one genus. And what happened? They became very dependent on a very narrow bandwidth of a variety of potatoes. And when the blight hit, I heard the other day they were talking about it in the Olympics. 1 million people died because of the blight of the potatoes. And so to me, if I bring that into my own personal experience then, or our church's experience, it says to me that if you narrow the bandwidth of a church by dividing out into groups, you lose the opportunity and the wealth of great diversity. Because at any given point in the life of the church, we have strengths and weaknesses. Now, unfortunately, I think what we've done, Brother Harold, is that we have seen weakness and tried to capitalize on it and tried to overcome and say, well, we're the strongest, and so we're going to rule. And we don't realize that we need to accompany each other in our vulnerabilities rather than try to be over and above. Tomorrow you'll hear me talk about that. Paul addressed the church in Corinth, and he said, Paul planted, Apollos watered. Both are equally, they're both equally important. important. And what they're talking about, Paul levels the playing field and says that that diversity of gift and talent, the diversity of thinking, the diversity of the culture enriches the culture. It doesn't deter. But if we're going to be that diverse culture, we really have to respect each other. So I think annual conference last year opened our eyes to the great diversity and really exposed it. I think this year what happened, and personally I think the jury is still out on where we're going. I heard the analogy that last year was the family gathering at Thanksgiving that didn't go well. And between Thanksgiving and Christmas, the peacemakers in the family went around talking to those who had the arguments in the kitchen and in the sidewalk and everywhere. They said, we can't behave like this like a family. And so they come together at Christmas, and there's a totally different environment, and there's a civility, and they find themselves in the joy of the family coming back together. Now, the question will be is that the next year's Thanksgiving, will they remember that change and how much they loved it? I have high hopes that, and there is every intention to continue the round tables again next year in Charlotte. I think that one change in annual conference was instrumental in changing the tenor of annual conference. Our evaluations that came in were very strong. They were the most positive and the most encouraging evaluations I've read in 9 years. And we're going to pay attention to those and listen to them. What happened at the tables was a new sense of community was experienced. And that community spanned across all kinds of barriers. 96 out of 100 tables wanted to stay together after one day. We didn't expect that at all. We thought maybe 20 or 30 would want to stay, but only 4 tables said, we want to change. That was remarkable. Then, those of you who were there, it was interesting. There was a table of the coffee and donuts and coffee and mints and, where the compassion. I mean, it was interesting how these micro-communities develop. And I think, to me, that is symbolic of a yearning of this church to find ways to get across those things that divide us, to broaden the community, because it does enrich us. And I see that as tremendous hope, Harold. And I'm encouraged by it, and we're going to work hard to bring that back to Charlotte and use those same kind of that same kind of setting, and we hope a behavior pattern that has changed from what it's been in the past. So thank you.